Captain Taemin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the stars. He had been doing this for 20 years now, ever since humanity learned how to travel faster than light. The view never got old. But today, something was different. Today, the stars felt like a prison. The message had come 3 hours ago from Ambassador Sun Mi on the Authority homeworld. Taemin played it again on his private screen. Sun Mi's face looked tired and angry. "They're calling it the Containment Directive," she said in the recording. "Humanity is forbidden from leaving our current systems. No new colonies. No exploration beyond our borders. They've already started building the blockade platforms." Taemin closed his eyes. 12 colonies. That was all humanity had managed to build in 30 years of space travel. 12 small worlds, most of them still dependent on supplies from Earth. And now the Galactic Authority wanted to lock them in a cage. The Authority had been watching humanity since the first FTL ship left Earth. 47 alien species, working together for 12,000 years. They had rules. They had laws. They had peace, they said. And they had decided that humans were too dangerous to be allowed freedom. "Captain," a voice called. It was Yuna, the logistics officer. She looked worried. "I've been running the numbers. If they cut off trade completely, our colonies will start running out of food in 4 months. Medicine in 6. The newer colonies don't have full life support systems yet." Taemin nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Authority didn't make empty threats. "Show me the blockade data," he said. The main screen changed to show a tactical map. Red dots surrounded human space like a noose. Hundreds of automated defense platforms, all equipped with weapons that could tear apart any human ship. Energy shields that could stop missiles and lasers. Plasma cannons that could burn through hull armor in seconds. "They're not even giving us a chance to surrender properly," said Engineer Hansol, the youngest member of the bridge crew. He was barely 30, but he had a gift for understanding weapon systems. "These platforms will fire on anything that crosses the boundary. No warnings. No negotiations." Taemin looked at the young engineer. "Could we fight them?" Hansol laughed. But there was no humor in it. "Fight them? Captain, their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Maybe thousands of years. We just learned how to make energy shields last year, and ours can barely stop a single missile. Theirs can take dozens of hits and keep working. Our weapons are toys compared to what they have." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew Hansol was right. Humanity had been so proud of reaching the stars. They had built ships and colonies and thought they were becoming a real, spacefaring civilization. But compared to the Authority, they were children playing with dangerous toys. Admiral Donghyun's face appeared on the communication screen. He was an old man now, but his eyes were still sharp. "Captain Taemin," he said, "I need you to take the Indomitable and test those defense platforms. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with." "Sir," Taemin replied, "that sounds like a suicide mission." "It might be," Donghyun admitted. "But we need information. Get close enough to scan them. Learn how they work. Then get back alive if you can. The entire fleet is counting on you." 3 days later, the Indomitable approached the nearest blockade platform. It was huge, easily twice the size of their ship. Strange alien symbols covered its hull. Weapons ports dotted its surface like eyes watching them. Dr. Haewon stood next to Taemin, studying her scanner readings. She was the ship's chief scientist, a brilliant woman who had designed half of their sensor systems. "Fascinating," she muttered. "The energy signature is enormous. That shield generator alone uses more power than our entire ship. Can we break through?" Taemin asked. Haewon shook her head. "Not with anything we have. Our missiles would be stopped by the shield. Our lasers would barely scratch it. Even if we had nuclear weapons, I don't think we could damage this thing." The platform suddenly came to life. Lights flashed across its surface. A beam of red energy shot past the Indomitable, missing them by less than a kilometer. It was a warning shot. "Get us out of here," Taemin ordered. Full speed. The ship turned and accelerated away. Another energy beam followed them. Closer this time. The Indomitable's shields flickered as the edge of the blast touched them. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Then they were clear, jumping into FTL and leaving the platform behind. Back on Earth, Admiral Dong-hyun called an emergency meeting. Every ship captain, every scientist, every military leader gathered to hear Taemin's report. The mood was dark. "They've built a perfect cage," Taemin explained. "Those platforms are automated and connected to a central network. They'll fire on anything that tries to leave, and we have no way to destroy them with our current weapons." Ambassador Sun-mi spoke up from her seat. She had returned from the Authority homeworld that morning. "I tried everything," she said. Her voice was shaking with rage. "I begged them to hear our appeal. I presented evidence that humanity could be peaceful. I showed them our art, our culture, our history. They wouldn't even look at it. Do you know what the head of the council said to me? He said, 'Humans breed too fast and adapt too quickly.' He said, 'We're a virus that needs to be contained before we spread.'" Someone in the back of the room shouted. Others joined in. The anger in the room was almost physical. Admiral Dong-hyun raised his hand for silence. "We have a choice to make," he said. "We can accept their terms. Live in our small corner of space forever. Watch our colonies slowly die because we can't get them supplies. Let our children grow up in a cage." He paused. "Or, we can fight. Even if we lose. Even if it means the end of everything. At least we fight." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not surrender. But as the meeting ended and people filed out, Taemin stayed behind with Dr. Hae-won and Engineer Han Sol. "Fighting is a nice idea," he said quietly. "But how? We can't beat their shields. We can't match their weapons. What do we have that they don't?" Han Sol looked thoughtful. "Maybe that's the wrong question, Captain. Maybe we should ask what they've forgotten, that we still remember." Hae-won's eyes widened. "You're thinking about kinetic weapons." "I'm thinking," Han Sol said slowly, "that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones." Engineer Han Sol stood in front of a room full of military officers and scientists. Most of them looked at him like he was crazy. He probably was crazy. But crazy might be exactly what humanity needed right now. "Railguns," he said again, louder this time. "We build railguns and mount them on our ships." Admiral Dong-hyun leaned forward. "Explain that again." Slowly. "Because it sounded like you just suggested we fight advanced alien technology with weapons from Earth's 20th century. Han Sol pulled up a diagram on the main screen. It showed a simple tube with electromagnetic coils wrapped around it. A railgun uses magnets to accelerate a projectile. No explosives. No complex guidance systems. Just a solid chunk of metal moving very, very fast. Fast enough to punch through armor. Fast enough to destroy anything it hits. "We know what a railgun is," said Colonel Bora. She was the head of the Marine Forces. A tough woman who had fought in 3 wars on Earth. "We stopped using them because energy weapons were better, more accurate, more efficient. Why would we go backwards?" Dr. Hae-won stood up. She had been working with Han Sol for the past week, running simulations. "Because their shields are designed to stop energy weapons," she explained. "Look at the sensor data from Captain Taemin's encounter. The platform's shield responded to our laser fire. It analyzed the energy signature and created a counterfield. That's how Authority shields work. They're smart. They adapt to whatever you shoot at them." "So?" someone asked. "So they're not designed to stop solid objects," Hae-won continued. "Think about it. For 12,000 years, The Authority has been fighting with energy weapons. Lasers, plasma, particle beams. Nobody uses physical projectiles anymore because they're considered primitive. The Authority's shields literally don't know how to respond to a chunk of metal moving at relativistic speeds. The room went quiet. Taemin could see people starting to understand. Hansol brought up another slide. We've run the calculations. A tungsten projectile, accelerated to 1/10 the speed of light, carries more kinetic energy than a nuclear bomb. And according to our analysis of the Authority's shield technology, it would pass right through their defenses. The shield wouldn't even detect it until it was too late. This is insane, muttered someone in the back row. This is our only chance, Admiral Dong-hyun said firmly. He looked at Hansol. How long would it take to build these weapons? We already have the basic technology, Hansol replied. Earth's navies tested railguns 200 years ago. We have the plans. We have the materials. The challenge is scaling them up for space combat and mounting them on our ships. I estimate 3 months for the first prototypes. 6 months for full production. Active, Dong-hyun nodded. You have 2 months. Captain Taemin, the Indomitable will be our test platform. Work with Hansol to get it combat ready as fast as possible. The next 2 months were the hardest of Taemin's life. The Indomitable was completely torn apart and rebuilt. The ship's entire structure had to be reinforced to handle the recoil from the railguns. Power systems were upgraded. Ammunition storage was added. The beautiful, sleek warship became something uglier, something heavier, something more dangerous. Hansol worked 18 hours a day, barely sleeping. Taemin found him in the weapons bay one night, staring at the new railgun mounted along the ship's spine. It was enormous, running almost the entire length of the vessel. Having doubts? Taemin asked. Hansol shook his head. Just thinking. This weapon is so simple, so basic. It's just magnets and metal. And yet, it might save humanity. If it works, Taemin added. It'll work, Hansol said with more confidence than he probably felt. The math is perfect. The simulations all say the same thing. Now we just need to test it for real. The test came 3 days later. An abandoned Authority platform had been found drifting in neutral space. It was damaged, probably from some ancient conflict, but its shields were still functional. Admiral Dong-hyun gave permission to use it as target practice. The Indomitable approached slowly. Every sensor was active. Every measurement was being recorded. This test would determine humanity's entire strategy for the coming war. Ready when you are, Captain, Hansol said from the weapons station. His hands were shaking slightly. Taemin took a breath. Fire. The railgun activated. There was no sound in space, but the ship's hull vibrated from the electromagnetic discharge. On the sensors, they could see the projectile leave the ship at incredible speed. A solid tungsten rod, weighing 50 kilograms, moving at 30,000 kilometers per second. The abandoned platform's shields flickered to life, sensing something approaching. Energy fields activated. Defense systems tried to respond, but the projectile was already there. It passed through the shield like it didn't exist. The tungsten rod hit the platform's hull and kept going, punching completely through the structure and out the other side. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the platform began to break apart. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface. Within 30 seconds, it was just debris floating in space. The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Hansol sat back in his chair, looking like he might cry. Dr. Haewon was laughing and shouting at the same time. Taemin allowed himself a small smile. Send the data to Admiral Dong-hyun. Tell him it works. The next 4 months were a race against time. Every shipyard in human space went to full production. Every warship was brought in for retrofitting. New ships were built with railguns as primary weapons. Ammunition factories worked around the clock, producing thousands of tungsten projectiles. Logistics officer Yuna coordinated the massive supply operation. "We're going to need so much metal," she told Taemin during one planning session. "Do you know how much tungsten we're using? We're mining asteroids faster than ever before in human history." "Whatever it takes," Taemin replied. "How long until the fleet is ready?" 6 weeks, Yuna said. "We'll have 30 ships with functional railgun systems. That's all we'll have when the Authority responds to our test." Yuna, Colonel Bora, was training her Marines for boarding operations. "If we damage their ships instead of destroying them, we need to capture them," she explained to Taemin. "We need their technology. We need to understand how their systems work. Every ship we capture makes us stronger." The intelligence reports came in daily. The Authority had noticed the destruction of the abandoned platform. They were sending an enforcement fleet, 20 capital ships, commanded by High Admiral Vector, a veteran of 100 battles. He had never lost a fight. "They're not taking us seriously," Dr. Hay-1 observed. 20 ships. They think that's enough to make us surrender. "2. Let them think that," Taemin said. "Underestimating your enemy is the first step to losing." Admiral Dong-hyun called the final briefing. All 30 human ships were ready. Their crews were trained. The railguns were loaded. The moment had come. "They'll expect us to surrender when they arrive," Dong-hyun said. "They'll activate their shields and point their weapons at Earth. They'll demand we accept the containment directive. And that's when we hit them with everything we have." Taemin looked around at the other ship captains. These men and women were betting everything on weapons that had last been used in Earth's ancient wars. They were trusting that being primitive might be their greatest advantage. "One more thing," Dong-hyun added. "When this is over, win or lose, the entire galaxy will know what happened here. Make sure they remember that humanity doesn't surrender. Make sure they remember that we fight." High Admiral Vector watched the human homeworld grow larger on his view screen. Earth. A small blue planet. Unremarkable, except for the infestation of aggressive primates that had somehow learned to build starships. This would be a simple mission. Show overwhelming force. Accept their surrender. Return home with another victory added to his record. His fleet of 20 capital ships was more than enough. Each vessel was 5 times the size of the largest human warship. Each carried weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Each had shields that had never been breached in combat. The humans had nothing that could threaten them. "Move into standard intimidation formation," Vector ordered. His crew moved efficiently, arranging the fleet into a wall of metal and firepower. "Activate shields. Charge all weapons. Prepare the surrender broadcast." 40. Well. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Taemin watched the Authority fleet arrange itself. 30 human ships faced 20 alien vessels. But the size difference was terrifying. Each Authority ship looked like a floating city, covered in weapons and armor that gleamed with alien technology. "They're not even worried about us," Engineer Han Sol observed. "Look at their formation. That's for show, not combat. They think we're going to surrender." "Let them think that for 20 more seconds," Taemin replied. He opened the fleet channel. "All ships. This is Indomitable. Target locks confirmed. On my mark, fire everything. Don't stop until they're destroyed or running." Admiral Vector's communication officer looked up. "Sir, the humans are not responding to our surrender demand, and they're approaching at combat speed." Vector made a sound that might have been laughter. His species didn't have lips, but his mandibles clicked in amusement. "They're going to fight us? Brave but foolish. Maintain position. Let them come. When they're close enough, we'll disable their ships and capture their crews. The Council will want to interrogate them." The human fleet accelerated. 30 ships against 20. But everyone watching knew the humans were outmatched. This would be over in minutes. "Mark," Taemin said quietly. 30 ships fired at once. 90 railguns discharged their projectiles. 270 tungsten rods, each moving at 1/10 the speed of light, crossed the space between the fleets in less than a second. On Vector's flagship, the shield systems registered incoming objects, but the computer couldn't classify them. They weren't energy signatures. They weren't missiles. They were just fast-moving masses of metal. The shields didn't know how to respond. In the millisecond it took for the defense system to request instructions, the projectiles arrived. The first rod hit Vector's flagship on the port side. It punched through the shield like it wasn't there. Then through the outer hull. Then through 6 internal decks. Then out the other side. The rod kept going, its momentum barely affected by the ship it had just pierced. 3 more rods hit the same ship, then 6 more. The flagship began to break apart, explosions rippling through its interior as power systems failed and fuel ignited. Across the Authority fleet, the same scene repeated. Ships that had never been damaged in centuries of warfare were being torn apart by primitive kinetic weapons. Shields that could stop particle beams and plasma fire were useless against solid metal moving at relativistic speeds. "What is happening?" Vector shouted. His ship was dying around him. Emergency systems screamed warnings. His tactical display showed 4 ships already destroyed, 6 more heavily damaged. "How are they doing this?" Quote, his weapons officer's voice was panicked. "They're using kinetic weapons, sir. Solid projectiles. Our shields can't stop them. Return fire." Vector ordered. The Authority ships that could still fight launched their weapons. Plasma beams and particle lances crossed space, hitting the human vessels. The human shields flickered and failed under the assault. 2 human ships exploded. 3 more took heavy damage. But the humans kept firing. Their railguns didn't need to recharge. Load another projectile, fire again. Load, fire, load, fire. The rate of fire was slower than energy weapons, but every shot that hit was a kill. Taemin gripped his chair as the Indomitable shook from an enemy hit. "Damage report. Forward shield is down," Yuna called out. "Hull breach on deck 3. Emergency containment holding. Keep firing," Taemin ordered. He watched another Authority ship break apart on his screen. 12 enemy vessels destroyed now. 13. The battle had been going for less than 10 minutes. High Admiral Vector made a decision he had never made before in his entire military career. All ships, retreat. Jump to FTL, immediately. But jumping to faster than light speed took time. Engines needed to charge. Navigation systems needed to calculate safe routes. Those precious seconds gave the human railguns more opportunities to fire. 2 more Authority ships exploded before they could jump away. 3 managed to activate their FTL drives and vanish, fleeing back toward Authority space. The rest were debris or heavily damaged hulks drifting in space. The silence after the battle was almost physical. 30 human ships, now down to 26, floated among the wreckage of what had been the Authority's enforcement fleet. 17 enemy capital ships destroyed or disabled. 3 escaped. Taemin stood up slowly. His ship was damaged but functional. His crew was alive. And they had just done the impossible. "Colonel Bora," he said into the communication system, "begin boarding operations on the damaged enemy vessels. I want every surviving alien rounded up and every piece of their technology cataloged. This is our chance to learn." Dr. Hae-won was already at her station, scanning the wreckage. "Captain, I'm detecting survivors on 3 of the disabled ships. We can capture them intact if we move quickly." Over the next 6 hours, human Marines boarded the captured vessels. The alien crews surrendered, without fighting. They were in shock. Their invincible ships had been destroyed by a species they considered primitive. Their shields, their pride, their entire understanding of warfare had failed them. Back on Earth, Admiral Dong-hyun watched the battle recordings over and over. Each viewing showed the same thing. The Authority's ships had been helpless against weapons that were hundreds of years old. Technology that the Authority had moved beyond was now their weakness. But Dong-hyun wasn't celebrating. He was looking at the bigger picture. 3 Authority ships had escaped. They would report back to their council. They would explain how humanity had defeated them, and the authority would respond with overwhelming force. "How long do we have?" he asked Ambassador Sun Mi. Sun Mi had connections throughout authority space. Her sources were already sending information. The council is in emergency session. They're calling this the greatest military defeat in authority history. Every species is demanding action. They're assembling a grand armada. "How many ships?" Donghyun asked, though he dreaded the answer. 300 capital ships. Sun Mi replied. Every species in the authority is contributing vessels. They're pulling ships from border patrols, from defensive positions, from everywhere. This isn't just about containing humanity anymore. They've decided we're an existential threat. They're coming to exterminate us. Donghyun closed his eyes. 300 ships. Even with railguns, humanity couldn't fight that many. They had barely survived against 20. How long until they arrive? Donghyun. How long until they arrive? 6 months, Sun Mi said. Maybe less, if they push their fleet hard. 6 months to find a way to fight 300 warships. 6 months to save humanity from extinction. 6 months to perform another miracle. Donghyun called an emergency meeting. Every captain, every scientist, every strategic mind in human space gathered to solve an impossible problem. They had won one battle. Now they needed to win a war they couldn't possibly fight. Captain Taemin sat next to Dr. Haewon and Engineer Han Sol. Railguns gave us one victory, he said quietly. But they won't give us the next one. We need something else. Something they won't expect. We have 6 months, Haewon replied, pulling up data from the captured ships. And we have their technology to study. Somewhere in these systems, there has to be an answer. Han Sol was already analyzing the enemy vessel's jump drives. They use a network of gates, he said. Wormholes, connecting their major systems. Captain, what if we don't fight the Armada at all? What if we go around them? Dr. Haewon had not slept properly in 3 weeks. Her eyes were red, her hair was messy, and she was staring at the captured Authority jump gate technology, like it held the secrets of the universe. Maybe it did. It's beautiful, she whispered to Dr. Sung-ho, the physicist working beside her. They've been using this for thousands of years and they've made it almost perfect. Stable wormholes connecting every major system in Authority space. You can cross the galaxy in days, instead of months. Months. Sung-ho nodded, adjusting his scanner. But it requires enormous energy. These gate stations are massive. Each one generates enough power to open a hole in space-time and keep it stable. We couldn't build something like this in years, maybe not in decades. We don't need to build it, Haewon said with a strange smile. We just need to break it. Captain Taemin walked into the laboratory at that moment. He looked tired too. Everyone looked tired these days. The countdown to the Grand Armada's arrival weighed on them all. 4 months left now. 4 months to find a miracle. Tell me you have good news, Taemin said. Haewon pulled up a 3-dimensional diagram. The Authority's entire civilization depends on these jump gates. Trade, communication, military movement, everything flows through this network. There are thousands of gates connecting their 47 species. It's the backbone of their power. So if we destroy the gates, we cripple them, Taemin said. Not destroy, Sung-ho corrected. We can't destroy them all. There are too many, and they're too well defended. But we might not need to. We've been studying how these gates work. They create stable wormholes by generating a specific energy frequency. If we could disrupt that frequency, we could make the gates fail. Engineer Han Sol had joined them. He looked excited. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Non. Haewon nodded. We can build quantum disruptors. Small devices that generate unstable wormhole fields. If we place them near the gate stations, they'll cause the gates to collapse. And when a wormhole collapses, it releases a massive amount of energy, enough to destroy the station and damage anything nearby. Taemin understood immediately. We wouldn't need to fight their fleet. We'd strike their infrastructure, strand them across the galaxy, cut off their ability to coordinate. I-11. Drake's 1. Exactly, Haewon said. But there's a problem. A big problem. We'd need to get these disruptors to every major gate station in Authority space. Hundreds of targets, spread across the galaxy. We can't fly there. Our ships would be detected and destroyed long before we got close. Then we teleport them, Hansol said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He was staring at the gate technology with the same intensity Haewon had shown earlier. The gates already tear holes in space, Hansol continued. We've captured 3 gate stations from the battle. We can study how they target specific locations. If we modify our fusion reactors, we might be able to generate one-way wormholes, not stable ones like the Authority uses, unstable, temporary ones, just enough to send a small team and a disruptor device through to the other side. That's insane, Seung-ho said. One-way wormholes are theoretical at best. The energy requirements would be massive. The failure rate would be enormous. You're talking about sending people through unstable tiers in reality. I know, Hansol replied. But do we have a better option? The silence that followed was answer enough. The next 3 months were a race against physics itself. Human scientists worked with captured Authority technology, trying to understand in months what the aliens had perfected over millennia. They built prototypes. They ran simulations. They failed over and over again. Navigator Da-eun volunteered for the first live test. She was young, barely 25, but she had the best spatial sense of anyone in the fleet. If anyone could survive an unstable wormhole, it was her. The math says there's a 40% chance of catastrophic failure. Doctor, Haewon explained to her. You could be torn apart. You could end up somewhere else entirely. You could arrive but be too damaged to survive. Are you sure about this? Da-eun nodded. Someone has to be first. Might as well be me. They set up the test in deep space, far from any inhabited system. A massive fusion reactor was modified to generate the unstable wormhole field. The target was a probe they had placed 1 light-year away. Da-eun would teleport to the probe's location and activate a beacon if she survived. Taemin watched from the observation deck. Admiral Dong-hyun was there too, along with half the human leadership. This test would determine everything. Da-eun stood in the teleportation chamber. She wore a protective suit, but everyone knew it wouldn't help much if something went wrong. She looked at the camera and smiled. "See you on the other side," she said. The reactor activated. Energy levels spiked to dangerous levels. Reality itself seemed to bend around the chamber. Then, Da-eun was gone. Simply not there anymore. The chamber was empty. 30 seconds of silence. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Then the beacon activated. Da-eun's voice came through, weak but alive. "I made it." It felt like being turned inside out. But I made it. "Come get me, please." I need to throw up. The observation deck erupted in cheers. It worked. Impossible, dangerous, terrifying. But it worked. Over the next month, they refined the technology, made it more stable, improved the survival rate to 60%, then 70, then 80. They built 1,000 quantum disruptors, each one paired with a modified fusion reactor for teleportation. Each one needed a volunteer crew willing to jump through unstable wormholes. Colonel Bora handled recruitment. She expected to struggle to find volunteers for what was essentially a suicide mission. Instead, she had 5 times more volunteers than she needed. People wanted to fight. People wanted to protect humanity, even if it meant possibly dying in the most horrible way imaginable. "We'll call them Rift Teams," Bora announced. "Each team will consist of 3 people. 1 technician to operate the disruptor, 1 soldier for protection, 1 navigator to help with positioning. You'll teleport to your target, place the device, activate it, and teleport back. Simple. Nothing about this is simple, someone muttered. No, Bora agreed. Captain Tae Min requested to lead a rift team. Admiral Dong Hyun refused immediately. I need you to defend Earth if this fails. The Indomitable is our most experienced warship. You stay here. Sir, I should be with my people. Tae Min protested. Your people are everyone in human space, Dong Hyun replied, and they need you alive and ready to fight if we don't pull this off. The final briefing came 2 weeks before the Grand Armada was scheduled to arrive. 1,000 rift teams stood ready. Each team had their target coordinates. Each team knew the risks. Many of them would not survive the teleportation. More would die trying to plant their disruptors. But if enough succeeded, they would cripple the authority. Ambassador Sunmi addressed the teams. She looked different now. Harder. The diplomat who had pleaded for peace was gone. In her place stood a woman who understood that sometimes peace required war. The authority has 47 member species, she said. They think their diversity is their strength. But it's also their weakness. These species only work together because the jump gate network makes cooperation easy. Take away the gates, and they'll fall apart. Old rivalries will resurface. They'll be too busy dealing with their own problems to worry about us. She paused, looking at the assembled volunteers. You're about to do something no human has ever done before. You're going to strike at the heart of an empire that has ruled for 12,000 years. Some of you won't come back. But because of you, humanity will have a chance. Because of you, we'll be free. Dr. Hae-won performed final checks on all the disruptors. Engineer Han Sol verified the teleportation systems. Navigator Da-eun, now promoted to lead the first wave of rift teams, made peace with whatever gods she believed in. The Grand Armada was 3 days from Earth when the order came. All rift teams, Admiral Dong Hyun said over the fleet channel. Execute Operation Shockwave. Bring down the authority. 1,000 quantum disruptors activated their teleportation systems. Reality bent, space twisted, and across the galaxy, humanity struck back. High Counselor Mekthar stood on the bridge of his flagship at the head of the Grand Armada. 300 warships, the largest military force assembled in recorded authority history. Behind him, stretched vessels from every member species. Proud ships that had never known defeat. Today, they would erase humanity from existence. The human homeworld is 3 hours ahead, his navigation officer reported. All ships are in formation. All weapons are charged. Victory is certain, Counselor. Mekthar's compound eyes gleamed with satisfaction. His species, the Vok, had led the authority for 6,000 years. Under his leadership, order would be restored. The humans would learn what happened to species that challenged the established peace. They would learn, and then they would die. Maintain speed, he ordered. Prepare the final broadcast. I want the humans to know why they're being exterminated. 7. At that moment, across 47 star systems, 1,000 quantum disruptors materialized. Navigator Da-eun felt her atoms scatter and reform. The teleportation was getting easier each time, or maybe she was just getting used to feeling like she was dying. She appeared 2 kilometers from a massive gate station orbiting a purple gas giant. Her small team was with her, all alive, all functional. Plant the disruptor, she ordered. We have 5 minutes before they detect us. Her technician, a young man named Byung-ho, worked quickly. The quantum disruptor was the size of a large backpack. He placed it carefully, aimed at the gate station's main power core, and activated the timer. 3 minutes until detonation. Team Alpha 1, package delivered, Da-eun reported, preparing to jump back. Around the galaxy, similar reports came in. Team after team confirmed successful placement. But not all teams. Some teleportations failed catastrophically. Some teams arrived but were destroyed by station defenses before they could plant their devices. Some teams planted their disruptors but couldn't escape in time. The casualty rate was 40%. 400 teams lost. 400 teams of 3 people each. 1,200 volunteers dead or missing in the first 10 minutes of the operation. But 600 teams succeeded. 600 quantum disruptors activated across Authority space. On the Vok homeworld, a disruptor materialized inside the central gate control facility. Security forces rushed to respond, but the device was already counting down. The Vok technicians tried to disarm it. They failed. The disruptor activated, generating an unstable wormhole field that interacted with the station's own systems. The gate station exploded. The wormhole it had been maintaining collapsed violently, releasing energy equivalent to a star-going supernova. The blast destroyed the station, 3 nearby ships, and damaged the planet's orbital infrastructure. More critically, it severed the Vok homeworld's connection to the jump gate network. Across 47 systems, the same scene repeated. Gate stations exploded. Wormholes collapsed. The carefully maintained network that had connected the Authority for thousands of years began to fail. Not slowly, but all at once, like a web with every thread cut simultaneously. High Counselor Mekthar's flagship suddenly lost connection to the Authority's communication network. His tactical display went dark. Status reports from homeworlds stopped arriving. His second-in-command turned to him with confusion visible even on his alien features. "Counselor, we've lost contact with Central Command. We've lost contact with all homeworlds. The jump gate network is reporting critical failures across all sectors." See, Mekthar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. What is happening? Reports began flooding in from the few ships that still had long-range communication. Homeworlds under attack. Gate stations destroyed. The network collapsing. And at the center of every report, human strike teams appearing from nowhere, planting devices, vanishing before they could be stopped. "The humans," Mekthar whispered. "They're not fighting us. They're fighting our entire civilization." On Earth, Admiral Donghyun watched the operation unfold. Real-time reports from surviving Rift teams painted a picture of beautiful chaos. The Authority's infrastructure was collapsing exactly as planned. Better than planned, actually. The cascade failures were more severe than expected. "Casualties?" he asked quietly. 42% of teams lost," came the reply. 504 volunteers confirmed dead. The rest are returning now. Donghyun closed his eyes briefly. 500 lives. 500 people who had volunteered to save humanity. He would remember every number. Captain Taemin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, monitoring the Grand Armada's approach. 300 ships still coming, still dangerous, still capable of destroying Earth. But now they were cut off from home. Now they were isolated. "Open a channel," Taemin ordered. "Let me talk to them." His face appeared on every screen in the Grand Armada. 300 ships. Thousands of alien officers and crew, all seeing the human captain at once. "High Counselor Mekthar," Taemin said calmly. "Your homeworlds are in chaos. Your jump gate network is destroyed. Your people need you to return and restore order. But you can't get back quickly, can you? Without the gates, it will take you months to reach home. Months. While your civilizations tear themselves apart." Mekthar's image appeared, his compound eyes wide with rage and desperation. "You have destroyed thousands of years of peace. You have killed millions." "Your gate stations were automated," Taemin replied. "Our casualties were minimal compared to what you intended for us. We struck your infrastructure, not your populations. We gave you a chance. More than you were going to give us." "What do you want?" Mekthar demanded. "Leave," Taemin said simply. "Leave our space. Return to your homeworlds. Deal with your own problems. And never threaten humanity again. If you try to fight us here, we will destroy your entire fleet. And your people will be leaderless, as well as chaotic." The silence stretched for long seconds. Every human ship had their railguns charged and ready. Every alien ship had weapons pointed at Earth. One wrong move, and millions would die. Mekthar made his decision. All ships, he said to his fleet. Retreat. Maximum conventional FTL. We return to our homeworlds. The Grand Armada turned away from Earth. 300 ships, moving in formation, beginning the long journey back to their scattered territories. It would take them 6 months, maybe longer, and by the time they arrived, everything would have changed. Over the following weeks, the authority fell apart. Some species tried to maintain the old order. Others saw opportunity and grabbed for power. Ancient rivalries resurfaced. Borders closed. Trade stopped. The carefully balanced peace that had lasted 12,000 years collapsed in less than a month. Ambassador Sunmi received hundreds of requests. Some species begged for human help to restore the gate network. Others demanded human technology. Some offered alliances. Others threatened revenge. The galaxy was in chaos and everyone wanted something from humanity. What do we do? She asked Admiral Dong Hyun during a strategic meeting. We rebuild selectively, Dong Hyun replied. Not the authorities' network. That was designed for control. We build something new. Gates that no one controls. Free passage for anyone who wants it, but defended by humanity against aggression. They'll hate us for it, Sunmi warned. Some will, Dong Hyun agreed, but others will be grateful, and all of them will respect us. Dr. Hae-won and engineer Han Sol led the effort to rebuild key jump gates. Not all of them, just enough to prevent complete civilizational collapse. Trade routes were restored. Communication networks came back online. But the new gates had a difference. They couldn't be used to transport military fleets. Humanity made sure of that. 5 years after the Shockwave, Captain Taemin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now patrolling the outer rim of what had once been Authority space. A convoy of mixed-species traders passed through a reconstructed jump gate. Humans, Vok, dozens of other species, all traveling together, trading, talking, building something new. Engineer Han Sol stood beside him, older now, more experienced. Do you think they'll remember? He asked. That we could have ruled them? Taemin watched the ships pass peacefully through the gate. I hope they remember something else. That we chose not to. A communication alert sounded. A distress signal from a colony world. Pirates attacking a settlement. 3 ships. Taking advantage of the chaos that still existed in some regions. Set course, Taemin ordered. Maximum speed. Let's remind everyone what happens when they threaten innocent people. The Indomitable turned. Its railguns ready. Its crew experienced and confident. They weren't the underdogs anymore. They weren't the primitive species fighting for survival. They were guardians now, protecting a galaxy that was learning to be free. On Earth, Ambassador Sunmi addressed the United Assembly, a new organization that had replaced the Authorities' Council. Representatives from 30 species sat in the chamber, equals rather than subjects, partners rather than subordinates. The Authority maintained peace through control, Sunmi said. We offer something different. Freedom with protection. Independence with cooperation. You can govern yourselves. Trade with whom you choose. Live as you wish. But if you threaten others, if you attempt conquest or genocide, humanity will stop you. Some representatives nodded. Others looked resentful. But all of them understood. The galaxy had changed. The old order was gone. And in its place, something messier, but more honest, had emerged. High Counselor Mekthar, no longer a counselor of anything, watched the broadcast from his homeworld. The Vok had survived the chaos, but they were no longer the dominant power. No one was. That was the point, he realized. The humans hadn't wanted to rule. They had wanted to prevent anyone from ruling. It was a strange kind of victory. one that left the victors with all the responsibility and none of the glory. Mekthar wasn't sure if he respected the humans for it or thought they were fools. Maybe both. The galaxy moved forward, fractured and free, protected by a species that had started with nothing but railguns and stubbornness. The Shockwave had erased the galactic authority across the stars. What replaced it was uncertain, imperfect, and alive with possibility. And humanity, the species that refused to surrender, stood guard over it all, remembering that the greatest power wasn't in ruling others, but in refusing to.